All right, Kelly, it's time for everybody's favorite segment of Beer and Brands, winners and losers.
Oh
You want to
boy.
do winners first or losers first?
Let's do winners first.
Okay, who's on our winner list?
Well, I think we've got one big winner this month, which is ChatGPT.
You can't do a winners list without that on it, right?
No, they've released their 4.0. It's everybody's talking about it, everybody's using it, and it's pretty good technology.
It's unbelievable. We were talking earlier about, like, I had to introduce a speaker at a dinner a couple of weeks ago, and I went on ChatGPT and said, write the intro for this person. And it came back really good, and it said, okay, you missed a couple of things, put this, revise it to put this back into it. It came back with an intro that had the things that were missing, little humor, nailed it. I mean, it's crazy.
It's really important. And it still is laced with issues that we as a society really need to think about. I don't want to be cavalier about the potential risks that come with shifting to an AI-generated world, but these guys have done a good job.
The technology is fascinating, and what ChatGPT is able to do is unbelievable, but the dangers that are kind of built into this technology are such that you can realize this could cause major problems if this isn't done correctly. And we don't have a great track record as a species for keeping a rein on our technologies.
I think we need to regulate, and I don't mean government regulation, but we need to carefully monitor anything that can be, obviously we monitor weapons. These are competitive weapons that they could have implications that we haven't thought about. They're going to be a reality of our future, AI is. It's going to be a tool, and I often think back to my early days in this industry when desktop publishing was threatening to some. And yet today, it's really made our lives easier and transformed the industry in positive ways. I think there's more positive transition of our industry than risk, but I do think there's risk.
Yeah. So when somebody says, should I be freaked out by this or should I be excited by this? The answer is yes.
A little of both.
Yeah.
But it's a brand that's on top of this category right now, doing great things, and so they deserve credit for that.
Yeah, and you can fight it if you want to, but you're going to lose.
Better to learn it.
It's coming. By it, you'll be amazed by it, but you'll also learn about what its limitations are and what makes it a little scary too. Let's talk about some losers. A couple big losers in the news.
Why don't you get started?
Let's get started.
Share the fun.
Oh, I've wanted to talk about this for a while. Fox News.
Oh my God.
Let's set political proclivities aside.
That's right.
We try. We sometimes fail, but we try. This is a brand that is really, really damaged by what's come out in the revelations from the Dominion voting lawsuit, which have come out and shown that not only is Fox News not telling the truth to its viewers, it knows, and its management knows it's not telling the truth, and they're okay with it. How do you maintain the integrity of a supposed news brand when it has now become obvious to the world that they lie and they know it?
Yeah, it's a huge issue. And, we think of branding as truth well told. Great branding is built around the truth of what you do. Here's a whole organization that has not only lied to its viewers, but it's a news organization. And if we can't trust a news organization to tell us at least what they believe the truth to be,
right,
then it's a violation of the trust of their viewers. And what we know now is that in public, in front of cameras, to their consumers, they were saying one thing, and in private, the very same people were saying, I don't believe that.
I think you just drew a really important distinction when it comes to news brands, right? There's a difference between bias, which as human beings is impossible to avoid. We all have our biases, right? Whether we're a journalist or not. Journalists are humans and they have biases. There's a difference between bias and lying.
Right.
And these people lied.
I think that's exactly right. You could argue that there's more than one truthful perspective on any current event. I don't know if that's true, if there's one objective truth or not. This is not philosophy in brands. We don't know anything about that. But I will say, when you are selling people on the credibility of the information on day-to-day events that you're providing, and they now know that you've lied to them, I think that's a serious risk. And they need to do some serious self-examining about how they process the news.
Yep. Footnote, truth well told, the brilliant tagline from McCann, the ad agency. It's awesome.
Another loser this month, and obviously we can't even have this show without talking about Silicon Valley Bank and the failure that they've had. And you may think that's not a brand failure, that's a business failure. That had nothing to do with them because the increase of interest rates changed the value of their securities, which led to the collapse of the bank. But actually, the spark that blew up that bank and that cost their investors billions of dollars was miscommunication.
Interesting, because this ended up on our list, and I was thinking, okay, it's definitely a loser, but how is this a brand or communications loser? And it is.
Yeah, the CEO decided to tell everyone that they were going to have to raise more funds to be able to remain solvent. I'm paraphrasing, but that was the message. And he seemed to forget about the fact that we have this thing called social media that spreads messages, and that nobody uses social media more than startups in Silicon Valley, which were his customers. And so almost instantly, people started pulling their money out of that bank. And before the end of the day, they had to shut the bank down for a run on the bank. And we know that a run on the bank, no bank is solvent enough to protect themselves when customers come to get their money out en masse. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, right. So it's an interesting communications issue. It also has interesting, I think, implications for what the relationship between consumers and their banks are or should be.
Right.
It means, if we've done a lot of work in bank branding, right? We don't talk about solvency and what your debt ratios are when you talk about selling a bank to a consumer.
Right.
But the implication of this is that if you're going to do the same kind of due diligence on your bank as a consumer that you do on your car purchase, right?
Right.
Which arguably your banking relationship could have a bigger impact on your financial health than your car purchase. If you have $250,000 in the bank, or worse, $500,000 in the bank, and it's not insured, you've got a $250,000 risk right there. That's more than you're going to spend on a car. But when's the last time you did any due diligence on the solvency of your bank? I have no idea. Right?
Yeah.
Is that your job now as a consumer, to look into the solvency of your bank? How do you do that?
Yeah, I don't know that it is. There's a lot of things we want from banks, and in our work with banks on branding, we're trying to capture what they offer above and beyond other banks. But there's one thing that every single bank should offer, which is that your money will be there tonight when you go to get it. And that is the most fundamental and basic thing. So not only did they jeopardize that with some bad practices, but it really is an amazing story when you think that one person's miscommunication could not only lead to the failure of a bank, but almost lead to the collapse of the United States economy. Now that scares the crap out of me because I make mistakes in communication, but
you're not going to crash the economy.
You've probably seen some of them today on this show. I hope the economy will never crash because of that.
The brand implications of this thing that at first blush feels like a major problem for financial institutions are really interesting if you dig below the surface of them a little bit.
I think they are. And I think financial institutions, from a brand and consumer messaging point of view, have work to do.
If I'm the chief marketing officer of a bank, I need to be thinking about, okay, how do I communicate my stability to my customers who are now worried about that and maybe 2 weeks ago weren't?
Yes.
That's a big question.
It is a big question. And if it was just one bank, I think the question wouldn't last that long. But we've seen secondary impacts of this. We're still seeing it with mergers of banks that may be insolvent or may have some issues happening in Europe. Even today as we speak, I'm sure there's more of it going on. So if you're a bank, there are some pretty significant implications here in terms of your ability to regain trust of consumers who are now worried about all banks because they don't know how to evaluate whether their bank is the next one to fall.
Yeah, very interesting. Watch this space.
Yeah.
So we've got winners, we've got losers. Let's toast the winner.
I'm going to toast the winner, and I'm going to toast Isley Brewing as a winner here today. Thank you for spending a little time with us.